I'm going to talk about home visiting practices for infants and toddlers with disabilities and their families. Home visits have been done with young children for many years, and you would think that we would have mastered the practice by now, but as it turns out, I think the history of home visiting actually might explain what some of the erroneous practices are that we now sometimes see. And I'll start off by making quite a controversial statement and then back up to explain why it's controversial. And that is that home visitors should not go into homes and work directly with children. Now that violates exactly what many home visitors think they should be doing. So what happened in the history of home visiting is that many early intervention programs began as center-based or clinic-based programs for providing early intervention. When Public Law 99-457 was passed to secure services for infants and toddlers with disabilities and their families, there was language in there about providing early intervention in natural environments. People pretty much ignored it until the first reauthorization of that law. And then the feds were stronger in their statements about the importance of providing early intervention in natural environments. So what some people did was they took the practices that they had been employing in clinics and in specialized classrooms and simply changed the location and did it in the home. So that's where we started seeing people walking into homes with big toy bags, sitting down on the floor and doing activities with the child. Now that approach is very interesting because it also has led to home visitors asking questions like, how do you get the parents more involved in the home visit? Which should be a non-question, because if you go to visit the adults, then the adults aren't going to be in any way uninvolved. The reason people have had to ask this question is because the parents saw these home visitors come into the home, sit down on the floor and start working with the child, so the parents, not surprisingly, thought, well, I could go do my laundry now, maybe I can watch, whatever. They didn't really think that the visitor came to see them, the visitor came to see the child, and the visitors were, of course, reinforcing that notion. So the problem with, there are a number of problems with spending time working directly with the child. One is that the learning that a child does, an infant or a toddler does, happens throughout the week, every day. It doesn't happen in these isolated, hourly visits once a week. And so if that's true, then how should the home visitor be spending his or her time in that 1 hour that they have with the family? Should it be trying to teach the child, or should it be trying to provide the family with support so that the family can then be teaching the child, which they are anyway, but teaching the child even more effectively during all those other many hours of the week? Clearly the answer is it should be the latter. So the home visitor should be coming in to visit the parents, and the child is there for a number of good reasons, such as perhaps demonstrating things with the child, or maybe trying some things out with the child and then letting the parents figure out how to do it also. A second problem with the home visitor coming in and working directly with the child, and traditionally they would do it with toys. Various materials would get dragged out of these big toy bags. And so the context was adult, which would be the home visitor, child, and toy. And this triad of adult, child, and toy was consumed usually 80% of a home visit. Well, what percentage of the time in a family's life is there an adult and a child and a toy playing? It's tiny. Most people guess it's like 5 to 10%. So most of family life is not about that kind of play. It's about bath time and feeding and hanging out, going for walks, meals, if I haven't already said that. It's about a lot of other things in addition to this small amount of time that's playing with a toy. So really that traditional dimension of home visiting was really way off base with respect to how families actually spend their time. Related to this, and a very important dimension of how home visits really should be done, is making sure that the plan everybody's following is a good, functional, family-centered, routines-based plan. And traditionally in early intervention, according to the research, the average number of goals or outcomes on an IFSP, an individualized family service plan, is between 2 and 3 outcomes. That's nothing. And when we do a routines-based interview, we see that families come up with 6 to 12 outcomes. Mm-hmm. So if you go in to do a home visit with a big, meaty plan of things that are really meaningful to the family, clearly the visit is going to be around those family and child issues, rather than just a narrow plan that's just around walking and talking or playing with toys or whatever the narrow ones were. So the framework that we're interested in teaching people is to use a support-based home visit. And there are 3 kinds of support: emotional support, material support, and informational support. Emotional support consists of many types of professional behaviors, but they should include being positive about the child and parents, being responsive to the parents, oriented to the whole family, not just the target child, friendly, and sensitive. And that combination of behaviors should pervade all home visits with all families. Material support is ensuring that families have access to the basic necessities of life: housing, clothing, food, etc. As we know, the basic needs have to be met before families can do more self-actualized kinds of things. And then the third kind of support, informational support, is most families want information about the child's disability, about resources and services, about child development, and then the big one, what to do with their child. Mm-hmm. And so home visits are about what to do with the child and all those other things, but always based on the family's day-to-day life, which is what we mean by routines. And with that kind of an approach, so that addresses family life, not just child functioning, ultimately the child is going to be able to function better, because it goes on, the teaching goes on throughout the day, and we're helping the parents to be the kinds of parents they probably want to be.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.